Get out the insurance cards, get out the copays. The office is open, my friends. Brought to you by drroto.com.
Yo, everybody, it's Holloway. So let's get to it. Bring the bang! What's up, everybody? It's Heat Override, and I'm ready to bring the pain for you and Dr. Roto this week. Ooh, yeah. What another crazy week for the Fight Club of Pain. We took home some money. Definitely happy, but we got to get to this week because I have a show for you. We're going to be doing our review, so you know what it is. It's the Heat-tastic review. Ooh, yeah. That's right. Holloway versus Poirier. What a hell of a fight that was. Man, that went great. So we'll talk about it, but let's get to it. So, as you know, there was a huge call made on the show Thursday. On top of how hot the show has been recently, there was a big call. Dan made a massive call. So I want to be one of the many people to congratulate him multiple times. I will talk about that very soon. So I do want to get to the fights because I want to get the fights out of the way because that takes the most time. First, Carly Judice, the whole card opened up a submission heaven, right? So that's why you have knockout and submission, something we talk about a lot, to hedge yourself just in case, if it's that, or knockout points, point submission, etc., etc. So Carly Judice won, got that right there. Bruno Ferreira won, got that. Ryan Spann won, got that. Jimmy Crute won, got that. Islam Dulatov, man, got that. That's what I'm talking about right there. That was one of my guys that was highlighted on the Five-tastic Picks and was talked about, but we did not cover on the actual Fight Club show. That's why when you got to the DFS picks, all of the bold picks that we also gave out during the podcast, parlays, things like that, that is something that you get. Again, you have to take everything. It's like a recipe. You have to take the podcast. You have to mix it with the soup can of the week episode. Gotta get it with that. Gotta throw that out there because we're talking about that. You know what I'm saying? You will know what I'm saying. And it's one of those things. So we get to the next one. Gautier won. Prado, I picked him. He lost. That's okay. Nicolay, he fought a good fight. But again, the thing is, if you still had Prado, you still went the distance. You know what I'm saying? So this was actually kind of nice. At this point, I'm about 8 guys. I picked I picked Brandon Allen to beat Marvin Vettori, but we'll get to Marvin Vettori soon. I picked Oliveira, which I can't tell you. Kyler Phillips came out at the beginning of that fight and he looked way better. But I'm like, dude, you're going to get tired. But Oliveira, with his just walking up on Phillips with his hands down, you never drop your hands. I'm a point fighter, so sometimes us point fighters, we got our hands out here, right? But at the same time, when you're in a boxing match and some guy's literally trying to beat you down and hurt you so he could win and win a lot of money and get fight of the night, things like that, you don't walk up on somebody. I'm not going to change your style, but and another thing too is how do you throw those kicks and those haymaker punches and you almost floor yourself multiple times during this match? Dude, you don't clean that up, that's going to get you beat a lot. But anyway, thanks for the win. Got it. Then we get over here to the main events, right? So I pick Zellhuber. Dan picks Johnson. Boom. Dan gets the win. Call of the week. We'll get to it. Then I did pick. Me and Dan both picked Dan Ige. And Pitbull won. That's it. So then Kevin Holland was both of our picks. Daniel Rodriguez won. That fight was actually brought up. There was a clip from that fight as well, too, where we actually talked about if Daniel Rodriguez could keep up with Holland. And you know what? He did. He did. And that's sometimes you come into a fight, the underdog, and you go beyond yourself and you can actually hang with some of the best. Thanks, Kevin. And then Paulo Costa, I really wanted to pick him. I did not pick him. I picked Kopylov, and Kopylov looked like crap. He didn't even know how to solve him at all. But that takes me back to, we'll get to it. So, of course, the main event, we got Holloway versus Poirier. Another epic. I double stacked this on DFS because I knew that this was going to go to distance. and I was able to get a lot of money from it from two guys that were worth 8,200 and 8,000. So he kind of went in the middle. That was the idea of that lineup, and that's what theory I went with that one. It did win me money, not a lot, practically tripled up, but at the same time, scores were kind of crazy. We were up there, so let's get to it. My record was 9-5. Dan went 3-2. I went 1-4 on the main card. Wow, I was just like, pfft. The Five-tastic Picks. I'm gonna bring that up. So I guess over the last month or so, I've been making the Five-tastic Picks more so something like, an update to the world of MMA while giving you all this, giving you both sides of the boxers, or, both fighters' sides. I'm giving you these numbers, I'm giving you that numbers, but honestly, it was getting a lot, so we're scaling it back, and we actually added something new. We added the DFS plays of the week. So you're going to be able to get 3 DFS fighters plays of the week from me, and you will get two guys, that is, value plays. Guys that were, and both my value plays hit this week. My value plays were Vittori and Patricio Pitbull. So, that's the craziest thing, because so now I'm doing that. So now you can just get to the article. You're going to get some pretty fast bets. You're going to get some good talking. And then, bam, you're out. You got your things. You know who to play. And then, for all of that information going forward, you're going to have to listen to the Fight Club of Pain. That is what the Fight Club of Pain is for. It's for us to discuss the fight theory. It's easier for us to talk for an extra minute or two than having to write for the next 5-10 minutes, and then have a lot of you get confused or might just be passing over it. So that's something I wanted to bring up and get that too. And get ready for football season, because I need things shorter, because I'm going to have more articles. Heck, I got a football article due Tuesday or Wednesday. So that, and I get my UFC rankings. You also get my WWE rankings coming up. You get it. I should probably have a SummerSlam article, 1 or 2, coming out as well too. SummerSlam is coming, and it's just one of those crazy things. So it's an exciting time of the year. It's the end of the summer, and we're going to have all these things to do. Plus, we're about to get back into point fighting soon. So that's another thing that's going to be coming up. But that's end of August for right now. Let's get to it. Dan and me, as I talked about Daniel Rodriguez and his ability to be able to keep up and box with Kevin Holland and actually beat Kevin Holland. Holland had a bad fight. He looked good at times, but he did not do what he had to do. But honestly, one of the greatest calls I've seen in the DFS and betting history. Not only Dan wrote the Soup Can of the Week article about this man, and then at the end, we threw in some bets. That was on me. That was, of course, Zellhuber. And what ended up happening is Dan was right. Dan was right about Michael Johnson. Not only did Dan play Michael Johnson on his DFS lineup, also I did as well too. He was 6.9% owned. It was really, okay, so I've been doing DFS UFC since the Super Bowl, and I've seen a lot of, the ownerships are higher. It's almost like a showdown slate. And so you only have a limited number of players. Exactly. So this week we had 14 fights, 28 fighters to pull from. But what I've noticed is the percentages are usually high. Of course, heavy favorited fighters are around 60, 50 to 60, 70. I've seen 70. I've seen 90. So when you're looking at that, the average and normally like for football, I'd say the average could be 20 to 30. You're getting contrarian around 10, 15%. You're ultra contrarian anything under 9%. So that's the way I roll it with football. But with DFS, UFC, it's different. The numbers are kind of bloated. So when you get like a 15 or a 20, that's like a 10% dude, 9%, 8% dude for football, maybe even baseball. So when I'm saying that, and I'm telling you that Michael Johnson was a 6.9% owned on most slates, that only tells you the greatness that Dan came up with this. And the reason why, and this is what I'm going to stress to you. First of all, again, credit is due to Dan. 1 week, we're usually both hot every single week. We've had our weeks where we've practically tied. We've had our weeks where Dan is hot, this was the week where Dan was hot. Now, DFS-wise, I was hot too. So, and we're going to get to that. But at the same time, I say that because there's so much we have to talk about, so much that we do. But man, Michael Johnson was the soup can of the week. And he was selected. He was targeted by Dan for a reason, and he got the win. He beat Daniel Zellhuber because of the Philly shell. As called on the Fight Club of Pain, Dan said that Zellhuber hasn't encountered a Philly shell like Michael Johnson's. And Michael Johnson's Philly shell, and I'm like, you know what? That's crazy. Just send one down the pipe, kick the legs, let's get it moving, maybe take it to the ground. I knew Zellhuber was going to do that with his significant strikes being so much. But at the same time, I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, well, this should happen. On Zellhuber's side. So he's my highlight for my article. Well, here goes the soup can here. He's sitting there. And every time, here's the thing. So he's tucked in like this. And Zellhuber and his corner did not see that. They literally ignored it. He kept continuously throwing head kicks. And Michael was already blocking. He was sitting there with his hands just like that in the Philly shuffle, just doing his thing, right? So every time it was wasted energy. It was wasted. The end of the second round and going into the third round, Zellhuber was confused. And his corner told him they got to knock him out because he didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to beat it. And it's like, you see people beat through a Philly shell sometimes, lose or get choked out, someone take takedown or something. But was literally his kryptonite. He could not solve it worth anything. And there you have one of the biggest favorites on this card coming out. Now, I only played him on maybe 2 lineups. On FanDuel, I had 7 and 5 cashed. DraftKings, I had 4 and 2 cashed and 2 didn't. But the 2 that didn't, practically it had people who lost. It had people who just didn't make it. And that's just what happened. One of them was I did Holloway and the Poirier lineup. So there was the one on that on DraftKings. I lost. FanDuel, I won. Because the pricing was a little better because of the people we're about to talk about. But I got to say, that is one of the slyest moves in DFS history. I've seen great moves. Doc alone calling the Chizen call. Me calling Cedric Tillman multiple times last year, just doing things. And this was just as epic. The fact that Michael Johnson was able to do that. Heck, if I would have put Michael Johnson in instead of, say, maybe Kopylov, well, not even that. I could say there was just so many, maybe I wouldn't have put him in for Ryan Spann because I had great lineups. I knew how to work in my lineups. So, Michael Johnson, I would have had to take out either Vettori or I have to take out Pitbull. And I didn't want to do that. So for me, that's what makes that call even more epic. And that he called it to the T. He called it that Zellhuber was going to be puzzled. And then it happened. It watched. That's called Fight IQ, people. And that is called Fight Theory. And that is what some of the best UFC podcasts and what the Fight Club of Pain use. Ex-fighters are, in my opinion, always going to be able, or current fighters are always going to be able to give you a better advice towards a finish than someone who's just looking at numbers. Numbers don't finish people. The finishes produce the numbers, but you have to understand why that finish happened. You have to understand what took place for that to happen. That is why, even though I've watched a lot of fight tape, I'm still green behind the ears because there's still a lot of fight tape I haven't seen. Now I'm seeing it all. And that is what we're trying to provide for all of you at the Fight Club of Pain. Sorry about that for stuttering it up like that. So let's get to it. Pitbull was about 10% owned. Again, what? 10% owned? He'd override. You were talking about Pitbull. Pitbull was 100% on all of my lineups. And the reason for that being is because I knew he was going to go to the distance. What was even better is the minute he took Dan Ige down, I was like, yo, we got the old Pitbull back. He's wrestling, he's banging, he's doing what he needs to do. And he got his first UFC win. Ex-Bellator champion finally gets his win in the UFC after getting served up to Yari Rodriguez in a hard fight, especially with Yari's explosive kicks which he used to keep Pitbull away. And Pitbull is a small dude with a small reach. But at the same time, he was able to get the perfect opponent, Dan Ige, which we have all talked about. This is the opponent he should have had, and now he got it. He got the win. He got the win. I'm proud of him. He was $11 on FanDuel. He was $76 more than Marvin Vittori on DraftKings, however. So he wasn't so much of a discount there. But it still worked towards the other things that I got. So Vittori, speaking of which, 18% owned. Remember when I said that 25 and 30% is about the idea? I mean, like last week when I got Mike Davis for 25%, that's massive on that. I would think, and should have, Mike Davis, even on the DFS snake drafts for DraftKings, Mike Davis was the top fighter practically. He was right there and nobody took him. 25%, right? And that dude slept it. He did exactly what he needed to do. So that's why I'm saying when you get somebody like that, or you get somebody like Vittori who can go the distance, yeah, he got 50-some points. And that's great. But guess what? Pitbull got over 80. And he was $11. He was the second to third last person on the slate for FanDuel. This is why fighters know fighters better than slates or sports books or number pushers. We just do. We just do. Do you think when I go in to prepare for a fight that I think about my numbers? No, I think about what I did to my last opponent. I think about if I've seen this opponent. When I get there, I watch my opponent fight. If my opponent does happen to fight before me, say there's 3 of us, I'm able to watch the other guy and see what he does and see how he's moving that day. And then I'm able to go in and then take him out. So that being said, another thing that was crazy is Costa was around 26%. That means people were believing that right there should be a true punt, but he was there. And Zellhuber, this is why, going back to Michael Johnson, Zellhuber was 11% and Dan Ige was 16%. People on the DFS slates avoided the Pitbull Dan Ige fight, and they avoided the Michael Johnson and Daniel Zellhuber. I got Daniel Zellhuber for 10%. And if he does win that fight, that 10% from a guy that could have produced a knockout if he wouldn't have been befuddled or confused shows exactly why DFS UFC is not only superior to most DFS sports, even though you're not going to admit it, it's one of the most fun, and it's also hard at the same time. But it's unique. It's very unique. And what I mean by hard is when you get the main event to your card canceled. That sucks, right? So at the same time, let's pop it over. I scored one of my highest lineups on DraftKings was 560, and I saw people around like the 490s, 500s were scoring. Top scorers, whatever. It was around like 600 points. Good. FanDuel, my highest lineup was 730 points. 800 was the top in some of them, but I saw in a lot of the contests that I was in, it was around 600 or 760, 766. So really just 36 points off of the big money again, putting ourselves in the position. So that's that again. This is what we teach at Dr. Roto. We always have the right here for all of your fantasy needs. I say it all the time because we're able to find those ways, those finishes, those plays, those things, those 10%, those 7%, able to make the slate, break the slate. That's what I always talk about in football. It is fully translated to the UFC. The product at Dr. Roto is well worth investing in, looking in. You're already part of Dr. Roto for fantasy football and DFS. We have an amazing staff and crew for that. Best in the industry, definitely one of the best. And we're out there trying to put out that work. We got Doc on the radio yesterday and today on Sirius XM. It's what we do. So that's the show so far. Do stay tuned. We're going to have the Fight Club at Pain is coming back this Thursday at its normal time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will be doing UFC Fight Night. Whitaker versus DeRitter. Oh, DeRitter, one of the guys that we nailed a finish on from Etihad Arena. Of course, that's in the Yas Islands, Yas West. So with all that, we'll be back. And then, of course, I want to say I am in the works right now to get an interview with We Want Picks, talk UFC, catch up, hear their stories, see where they came from, get that out there, and just really bridge the gaps. I really like the content that they do, and I really like the content with it. It's you could say somewhat content can all be similar, and they know their finishes, they know their creative. They put out like 5-6 shows a week. So for me and Dan, we always have to, that's why we always have everything directed towards that show, is so that we can give you everything in that one show. But that's why we only do 4, 5, or 6 fights, sometimes 7 for UFC 317. That was nice. That was another good card. So that's what we're getting to. Also, I have an interview on the Catania Chronicles. It airs live on Rocket from the iHeart Radio in Erie, PA. That right there, just woo! I got literally an interview every week for the next 2 weeks. I got one that I'm going to do, and I got one that I'm going to be the person being interviewed. Again, this seems to be happening a lot, people. It's because what we're doing in the industry, we're trying to win all of you money. We're trying to give you the best theories, the best ideas, the best. You got Dan, you got me, you got all the rest of the Fight Club of Pain behind the staff. We're all fighters. We have one of our guys, Pre. He's coming up on his fight. He fights August 2nd at the Bayfront of the Brawl. It's one of the Bizarro productions. And so we're going to go there. We're going to cheer Pre on. We got to get this win. So he's MMA. He's in the cage. So this is it, man. It's been some time off. He had a couple fights drop out. Things didn't work out. Now this is the one that is solid. He's literally he's less than 2 weeks away. 2 weeks away. So again, so much going on with the Fight Club of Pain. We can't always bring everybody on, but what we have and what we're doing right now is great. Get to Dr. Roto, use code WORKDOC, join up, get those articles, check out the Soup Can of the Week, check out the Five-tastic Picks, also check out all of the other great articles, the fantasy football articles, the reviews, the bold picks, the projections that we got going on. We have bets coming up here in August. We're going to have a whole thing for that. So that's what you're going to do, and stay tuned for all of my podcasts. We are not far away from Bring the Pain going to 4 podcasts a week. Have a great day, everybody, and always remember to bring the pain. Ooh, yeah.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the channel and checking out drroto.com. Until the next visit, be well and take care.